What a time. Background: I have been married for 17 years. We are both 37. Been with my husband 20 years, since senior year of high school. We have 3 children, aged from teen to elementary school age. Overall, we have had a pretty good marriage. We don't argue a lot. We enjoy doing the same types of things. We spend a lot of time together. We don't have money concerns. We don't argue over the child rearing much. We are fairly respectful and supportive of each other. We do have some in-law challenges but have always sided with each other over the in-laws and not had much trouble dealing with that together. And our bonding life has been mostly good with some dry patches. Mostly during the first year of each of my children's lives. My 1-year anniversary of DD1 is next week. I think I had 4 DD. He is self-employed, IT field, works all over the city and sometimes travels further or overnight for work. I am corporate employed, rarely travel, and can always be found at or near my desk. In other words, he is very mobile and I am not. He is very technical. I'm more limited but not totally stupid about technology. He is also definitely the typical alpha male and I tend to defer to him but not always. Financially we are pretty equal and make a very nice income for our family together. Other than my career, we have what I would consider a traditional marriage. H became heavily involved in a local non-profit organization in recent years. I'll stay pretty vague on this. I was resistant to his increasing involvement because of how much time and effort it took with little to no gratitude, and actually quite a lot of stress. I told him how I felt but supported the decision as his to make. We made a new circle of friends, all married couples, that also participated in these activities. They were not normally people I would select as friends. However, beggars cannot be choosers when it comes to volunteer work, and after spending so much time together, friendships developed. So much so that several of us couples went out frequently, had BBQ and get-togethers. Even took some vacations together. One couple in particular became very close to us. I really didn't care for the wife but played nice for H's sake. This wife and I were in contact pretty much every day. Our kids became close, etc. Our friendship was superficial, but we were together a lot. This brings us to about December 2nd years ago. During that time, there was a slight uptick in the drinking instances where my H got out of control in public. There was to be a Christmas dinner with some of these same friends. It would be open bar, and I knew what kind of evening this would spell out for me. I decided not to go. I got several calls and texts from others asking me to go. I just turned off my phone and went to bed. The next day, I reviewed my phone messages to see that he'd gotten very drunk, made wild accusations against his good friend, had a fight, and was kicked out of the restaurant. I check his phone, and I see a text from the other aforementioned wife. I should back up to say that while my H and I didn't do a real good job of setting boundaries. I'd always said it's not appropriate for a married woman to text or call another man and vice versa in most cases. Definitely not about chit-chat, personal stuff, etc. The wives talk to the wives and the husbands talk to the husbands. I was told I was old-fashioned, but for the most part, this request was honored. We also always shared passwords, left FB open, and cell phone lock codes were never allowed in our house, and I regularly snooped just out of nosiness. And back to December 2nd years ago, I see a text from the wife of the couple we were closest to and spent the most time with. So, text from other wife to my husband says, we should leave the party poopers at home and go to the Christmas party together. Come to find out that her H had not wanted to go just as I did not. I went ballistic. How inappropriate. I showed my H. He downplayed it, asked me not to make a big deal, didn't want to disturb the group friendship or the volunteer organization situation. I discussed it with 2 other friends who both thought I should confront the girl, but stupid me. I listened to my H's advice. Next, we have January, February, and March of last year. We plan a big group vacation with several couples. We all kick off a diet and exercise program and it works. We all get skinnier and hotter looking. My husband starts taking some kind of supplement and his libido increases. Instead of bonding 2 or 3 times a week, we get up to 4 to 5 times. I'm cool with it. I enjoy bonding, and being that I'm toning and slimming, I'm feeling hot and sexy too. We have a lot of fun over these months, going to a couple of concerts, planning the vacation, shopping for clothes. He's taking pictures of his new muscles and slim body and posting them on FB. He's wearing younger styles of clothes. So, in other words, in hindsight, all of the infidelity signs were there disguised as getting ready for vacation. I should mention in here that the O, my friend who you've probably figured out by now is or becomes the O, is a nurse in women's care of all things. Around February or so, not sure exactly, I start having recurring female infections. Quite severe. I self-treat over the counter, nothing works. I ask friend for help. Oh, the irony. And she gives me several prescriptions over a few months. I've never in my life had these types of infections. It was very rough. April arrives. We go on vacation. The first night of vacation, H gets super drunk. He decides to stay out with another gentleman. Verified. Comes in very drunk, and we have a physical altercation resulting in me hitting my head really hard. Way to kick off the family vacation. Next morning, I feel terrible. H has no recollection of his actions and is apologetic. Vacation must go on as planned. I apply motion sickness patches, prescribed again by my friend, OW, and embark on a dream vacation. The first few days, I feel as if I'm floating on a cloud. I have little appetite, I'm dizzy, I'm thinking through a fog, I sleep more than I normally would. I'm stuck with our youngest a big part of the time, and rather than have both of us stuck there with him in the pool or whatever, I encourage my H to go have fun. Smack head. I'm not feeling like much fun anyway, however I'm fake smiling and trying to be part of everything though I don't feel it inside. Halfway through the week, I'm sleeping in the evening, still feeling poorly. Somehow, I dizzily fall in the night, really badly bruising myself all over and breaking a finger. I decided something is wrong with me. Maybe I have a concussion or I think maybe the motion patch is bothering me. Yes, I took that sucker off and felt less foggy and dizzy within an hour. In hindsight, did that be gave me some weird drink? Who knows? At this point, half of the vacation is over. But I'm feeling a little better. One night we have a bit of confusion at dinner resulting in my H and I at different tables. In later talks with OWH, he said my husband was gazing into her eyes and fawning over her during dinner to where he and his wife argued about it later. But I had no idea about this until much later. Other weird things happened that I see in hindsight. The vacation winds down, we all go home. I did notice that throughout this entire week and probably a month before the vacation, my friend was more distant than usual. She comments at vacation's end that her H was with her the whole week and that she got no free time or time to have fun with her girls. I'm sure really meaning my H I said that was nice and didn't she enjoy getting his extra attention. She looked at me like I was nuts. Mother's Day comes. We spend the day with his mom at his request. She's been out of the picture a while, having her own personal and psychological issues, but that's another story. I should note that H's stepfather was found to have had a 10-year affair on his mom. She found out about 2 years ago and has never been the same. My H saw what agony his mom went through before deciding to do the same thing to me. Anyway, I don't enjoy the day, but I smile through it and he's none the wiser. The next weekend H and I alone attend an event. We have a ton of fun dancing, visiting with family, but as soon as we are in the car on the way home, he lays into me about how I'm keeping him from his mom and he's sick of it and has been thinking of not being with me anymore. He doesn't use the D word, as we always promised each other that word was not a word to use to threaten in a fight or to use lightly as we saw other couples do. I find out later that O had repeated a slight vent on my part that my Mother's Day wasn't perfect. She included enough truth with her lies and exaggerations about what I'd said for him to believe. So, he'd been stewing on that all week, egged on by her, and was now furious with me while I'm clueless. Apparently, she did this often with what little personal info I ever gave her. Just enough truth sprinkled in for him to believe the lies that I was unhappy with him, didn't want him, mistreated him, etc. I do not think it would have ever happened with another woman had it not been my friend with this special insight and ability to manipulate both me and my H to suit her needs. May comes, we spend Memorial Day weekend with this couple. I'm very sun sensitive and though I enjoy getting some rays, I always retreat to the shade at some point. I'm sitting alone in the shade of our canopy. My friend is 15 feet in front of me in a beach chair with my husband on one side and her husband on the other, talking animatedly. I feel a twinge of something, but I ignore it. The next 2 weeks we are all busy with volunteer org activities. Then my youngest has a severe injury that lands him in the hospital for a few days. H is in and out, as he's working a lot and has the other kids to watch. I stay at the hospital, never leaving even for a second. One day, my friend says she wants to stop by. It's the day before we'll be checking out and my H could use a ride back to our side of town so he doesn't have to come back to pick us up the next day. I ask my friend to give him a ride back to our side of town, 40 minutes drive. I have to say that I am boiling with rage as I'm writing this. She comes, brings a bag of dollar store crap to my little injured guy. I thanked her for giving my H a ride home and as I watched them smile and walk out of the hospital room together, I got that twinge again. He was much stronger, but I ignored. I come home the next day with my little guy, and that evening we are out at one of the other kids' events. After the event, H and I and the kids stop to eat. While the kids are away from our table, my H out of the blue says he wants a divorce. He says that since I had recently threatened D around his drinking, he thinks maybe we should just do it. He says we're just not that close, and at this point I completely shut down. I ask him no questions. We go home. I go to bed, cry all night with him listening in the bed beside me but doing nothing. Go to work the next morning like a numb icicle. That day I have an interview at work for a very big promotion, one I've been waiting 10 years for. I'm completely out of it. I'm sitting at my desk, just staring at my screen. Before the interview and out of the blue I decide to look at my cell phone bill. I thought, I wonder who he talked to yesterday or maybe who he might have called after he dropped the D-bomb on me. I see that as soon as we got home, he talked to my friend for an hour and that's when I knew. I felt my body temperature plummet. I started shaking and sobbing right there at my desk. I don't remember anything else about that workday. I don't remember my interviews with 3 managers and the vice president. I don't know how I got home. That night, everyone attended one of the kids' events, but I stayed home. I still had not spoken to H really. I was a complete zombie. He told me that I couldn't be like this. We had to act normal for the kids and I never missed their stuff. I said something along the lines of the hell I don't and locked myself in my room. They came and went. I was still in zombie mode. That night I sobbed, and my H spooned with me and held me tight. Neither of us said anything though, and I took the comforting as his way of saying goodbye to me and sobbed even harder. Went to work the next day with the plan to scour the cell phone bill. Holy hell, wow, thousands of texts and hundreds of hours of calls starting guess when. Yep, with the Christmas party text I noticed in December. So, from January through first few days of June, they were texting or calling nearly every day. Seeing the patterns of H talking to me, then her. Or the intermixing of her texts with mine, and then also with OWH, was shocking. Being a person who analyzes, I dumped all 5 months' worth of phone data in Excel and started analyzing. I saw that they talked for about an hour when she was on her way to work, her lunch break, and on her way home. They texted in between, not much night or evening activity. I noticed that she almost always initiated contact. He would call back or text back, but even still the number of contacts were about 70% her. Anyway, I'm doing all this at work. I feel like my body is stiff as a board and dead. It's like I have hypothermia. I'm so cold and shaking. One of my employees messaged me and says, "Are you okay?" I say, "Yes, why?" He says, "Because you are sobbing." I didn't even know I was. I had earbuds in, and our office is completely open with low cubicles. Apparently, my employees discussed who should let me know I was sobbing. Not cool. I go to restroom, send text to H that I love him and I don't want D and I want to talk that night. He says okay, he's working across town. So I tell him I will meet him at the kids' event that evening and then we will drop kids off after and go to dinner to talk. He agrees. I know that O and OWH will also be at event. I pick up large bottle of wine and a cup with lid that would hold soda and pour the whole bottle of wine in there. I add a straw. I pick up the kids, drive to the event. I set out my stupid little folding chair. Here comes OW and OWH. "Hey girl, how are you crap?" I start sipping on that straw hard. I purposely ensure that I sit next to OWH and O is on the other side of him. Otherwise, I know that she would be dead today. I drink the whole bottle and I'm feeling wild. At some point, I realize she is texting away over in her chair next to her H. I know she's probably texting my H who is on his way to the event. I text my H and say, "I can't wait till our talk tonight." He tells him to. I say, "Stop listening to that bee in your ear." He says whatever, haha. I don't know if he told her anything. I don't think he did as there was no text or call to her after I said that. She makes an excuse about needing to leave, but I see her in her car still texting. Then she texts me from the parking lot, as I'm still sitting next to her H, and says, "What's wrong?" And I say something like stupid bees and a few other innuendos, but not saying anything direct as I want to confront H first. I never thought to Google or get a book or anything on how to handle this situation. I was just going with it. H shows up, sees right away that I'm not right, but acts normal and friendly to me, and OWH even hugs me hard and gives me a kiss. My oldest boy drives his drunk mom home. Then H picks me up and we go to local restaurant. Bar. I'm looking super good, still a bit tipsy. Pretty much right away, I tell him I know he is seeing O and want to know the extent of it. He says it's only been talk, just as friends, that they've been helping each other with their marriages. After pressing, he admits that it's gotten a bit flirty a few times, but mostly just talk. He's never been a phone talker. I call BS, but he sticks with it. I don't know how they hid it. He says he didn't hide it and he had close calls, to this day. This makes no sense to me, but he hasn't admitted to how he hid the contact. At one point, I did find an entry in his address book that showed her number plus the call block code under the name mark, which is not her name, but he wasn't blocking the calls. She occasionally called as blocked, but even she wasn't trying to hide it that hard. I was very open with my whereabouts and communications with both of them, check-ins on Facebook. So it's quite possible that a combination of communicating when I wasn't around and deleting the records was what worked. But still I wonder. Anyway, I'm devastated. Ask him what he wants. He says he wants to try and work it out. I tell me too. I point out all of the differences between me and O. He seems surprised at the insights I have into her and acknowledges that he hadn't looked at her that way. I want him to call her the next morning and end all contact. He says he will. He makes one comment that still haunts me. It's not like we were going to move in together or anything. It was just friendship. He says, "What about this volunteer org of which we are all so heavily involved in?" I say I want him to resign. He says he can't. It would hurt a lot of people in the community. He says OMH can't know or it will hurt this org. He says I have to act normal and we'll phase out the friendship over a bit of time. I say I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. but the NC call has to happen and he agrees. We have fantastic bonding all night that night and I remember very little as I kept drinking. Somehow, I go to work the next day and the cell phone online act says he called her and talked about 40 minutes that morning. I text and ask him if he called her and ended contact. He said yes. I said, are you sad? He said no. I said, is she sad? He said yes. I said, because she is busted or because she is losing you? He said both. I then text her and tell her she is never to speak to my H again or contact in any electronic or written fashion ever again. She is to avoid me and my kids. She is to delete us on FB and any other apps. I called her a bunch of names. She responds with, we're just friends. I was helping him improve your marriage. We only talked about the kids. You are crazy. You are freaking out over nothing and further nonsense. She tells me how much I mean to her as a friend. She doesn't want to lose our friendship. She tells me how much she loves my kids and how her kids will be devastated to lose their friends. I don't reply. I save all of her messages. We don't see them for a couple weeks. I stay busy at work. H and I try to connect in the evenings. Tons of bonding, drinking and going out. Not normal for us. Acting really crazy and dangerous. By now, I've learned I got that coveted promotion. No clue how considering my state of mind during the interviews, which means I'm super busy at work and this could not be worse timing. I'm feeling everything slipping. I'm depressed, not sleeping, not eating, hungover often, short with the kids, distracted at work, falling asleep literally in meetings. As often as possible, I drink. I know this is a bad habit to start, but it's the only thing I can think of to deal with the pain. Thus, I don't remember a lot of this time period. An event with the volunteer org approaches. I know we will all be present. I dread and dread. I finally decided to call the mom of the OWH and confide in her everything. I've always been close to her and admired her. She takes charge. I feel relieved. She agrees to be at the event and help keep everyone to their corners and says that at this point we should not tell OWH, her son. Again, at this point, we just think it was calls and texts and minor flirting. In our hearts we knew the truth. But you want to believe so badly. I say okay, I will do my best, but I can make no promises. I'm hanging by a string above a giant pool of crazy. OMIL calls me the next day to tell me she talked to O. Mother-in-law feels confident O is telling the truth. They were just friends but realized they were crossing the line with all the contacts and they were going to stop. MIL said O told her I was overreacting, etc. The mother-in-law, O and family are going out of town for a few days before the event we all have to be at. The day I know they are leaving, I'm messing with our iPad while sitting with my kids and I start looking through emails. Not really searching for anything, just browsing. There is a picture of her, one of those taken in the mirror with her looking back over her shoulder, jeans down. Then I find close-up pictures. I look at my H with what I'm assuming look like complete psychotic eyes. He looks startled at my expression but clueless as to its reason. I bolt out the door, jump in my car with the iPad and he's after me trying to get the iPad as I guess he just remembered what is on there. I'm holding down the electronic lock buttons while emailing each pic to my work email so he can't delete them. He gets in, takes the iPad and keys and goes into the house. I take off down the street on foot and hide in the woods. Yes, really, he tracks my phone and comes to find me, but I've already texted the picture to the O with some nasty words. To the O mother-in-law. And to 2 other friends. From the O mother-in-law I get, oh my god, this is horrible and disgusting. I'm so sorry. We are all in the car right now driving to X and I don't know how I'm going to pretend like everything is okay. I refuse to come home. We are shouting in the woods but there are houses all around. And I realize this is about to get out of hand so I say that I'll come home. I was again zombie person. I don't remember everything but at some point, I leave with my oldest son. He drops me off where I instruct him to and takes his brothers to their grandmother's for the night. H was still at home I think. This is foggy to me for some reason. I act like I'm going to a house until my son drives away. But I actually go to another wooded area and hang out there all night sobbing and getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. I just didn't know where to go. H wiped out my cell phone remotely when he couldn't figure out where I was in this big wooded area. Luckily, I still had my work cell. About 3 a.m. I figure he stopped looking for me and start walking towards where I could get to a gas station or whatever. I really just wanted some alcohol. Here he comes up the road, drives up over the curb and into the grass, demands I get in the car. I see he's lost it, I comply. We go home, drink, have crazy bonding, pass out. This is DD2, right? The vent comes. O is there and OWH. It's obvious to people that know us well something is up. I'm avoiding all of them but sticking close to HH is hugging me often in between his duties. Being very PDA in front of O and everyone else. This is not normal for him, but it is helping me a lot. I'm looking very good as I haven't eaten in weeks while she is flaunting herself around being more social than normal and looking like the dog turd that she is. We make it through that day. Another event is upcoming. I hear from OMIL asking how I'm doing. I'm having a bad day, act a little crazy. Make a few veiled threats. O and family go dark. because at this point H and OMH are still in near daily contact as they work together in this org and maintain their friendship. H says to me something is up. I agree, as OMIL stops taking my calls for a few days. I find out later that OMIL was concerned I was going to blow the lid off and convinced O to come clean with OWH with the MIL present. Email comes in a day or two later with OMH resigning from volunteer org for personal reasons. OMIL confirms that she and O had together told OMH about the phone calls, texts, and picture. OMH responds to one of H's postings on FB saying some derogatory stuff. H responds likewise. I'm flabbergasted at H's nerve to bash innocent OWH. I decide to email OMH to express my sorrow, commiseration, and offer to talk or share info, whatever he might need. He responds in kind, expressing his severe pain and asking how I could have held up a normal front for the past weeks. He wanted to know how I had kept myself from murdering his W. He confides that he'd had to pull over his car that day because he was crying so hard. I ask him if he thinks they really stopped before Pa. He says yes, he is very confident they did because he'd broken O down over the past few days and there's no way she could have continued lying under his pressure. I left the ball in his court, but indicated I'd like to stay in touch with him. He did not contact me further. I was disappointed but didn't want to pressure him. I thought we could have at least talked once or twice to connect some dots, and God knows we are the only two people that could truly understand what the other is going through. The next weeks and months are a blur. H says he wants to be with me. He puts up with a lot of craziness from me. I put up with some from him, but I can see him struggling to see my pain and trying to put himself out there. He makes some efforts, puts some promises in writing, reads articles I forward him, and shows remorse. We both drinks, not daily, but more than we should. He has NC with O since that very first NC call he made that I can find. I've had a few contacts with O, still her denying and me just saying random ugly things and the occasional honest question, but only lies coming from her. He's being increasingly more affectionate, considerate, doing some stuff around the house, emailing, texting, calling me during the day. Lots of I love you. It sort of scares me, because it's what I'd always wished for, had settled to do without. And now I'm getting it in the midst of all this confusion and pain. The bonding is the only really great thing. We are still at it 7 days a week. We have a couple nights out. I learned from a semi-friend in this same organization, no one I would ever confide anything in, that she knows about the talking between my H and O. I hear from a couple other friends that they'd heard things. One of H's male friends hugs me suddenly and really tightly for no reason, and I later find out my H had told him I cheated on her. She knows. And now we are having the best bonding of our lives. I find out that his other friend knows and that my H had asked about the friend's wife's affair and the following revenge affair. He asked, was it worth it? I'm pretty private and I have no idea why my H is telling all these people things. Isn't he ashamed of what he did? He almost seems proud. I call H out on these details but won't say who told me. H sleuths it out and begins threatening all of these friends, saying things were just starting to get a little better for me and now their talking has destroyed that. I'm at work getting phone calls from friends scared that my H is coming after them. Everyone is upset about how this affecting them, and I find myself in the role of comforting them. So, in addition to the picture and texts and the calls, it's now becoming pretty clear this was a P. I already had assumed it was. But it's very different to assume than to know for sure. Again, I'm devastated. So, this is DD3, back at square one. I flip out, send text to O, their mother-in-law scream at H. Time is a blur. Some of our talks are with alcohol so my memory has holes. Bits and pieces trickle out. He mentions that she'd given him a good time after I once drunk threatened that I would go to OWH and give him a revenge you know what because she'd once told me that she didn't like and never gave a good time to my husband. Eventually he admits to physical affair. Then to multiple times of physical. He refers to a couple sessions in hotels during the day when she was to be at work and he was mobile. He volunteers that those sessions involved several times of having bonding. I ask about protection. He says no, we didn't use them because I had only been with you and she had only been with 3 people. What the hell, she is a nurse. I said, she had a baby of mixed race as a teenager. And you believe her, but there is a limit to the details I want to know, even though these missing pieces do bother me. I make an appointment for STD testing. I also am still having those infections, which O, who is a nurse, had given me prescriptions for and refills that I'm still using as needed. I tell the doctor everything and cry like a baby. I wait for the results. I tell H I don't know what to do. He begs me to forgive and to stay with him. He says and does a lot of the right things. He says he did bad things during that 5-month period. He says he doesn't want to rehash those things and doesn't want to hurt me more than he already has. And that's why he's withheld details. I ask him if I know everything. He swears that I do. I'm still not eating, not sleeping, in a daze, but working and going through the everyday motions. H is treating me like I'm made of glass. Still, lots of physical bonding. Weird things I notice about myself. that all still exist today, tremors at random times in my body. Like electric shocks, regularly hearing myself catch my breath like one does after a hard crying jag, body temperature drops when I'm upset, fear at strange times, like if my H and I get separated at the grocery store and I can't find him quickly. I have panic attacks. Anyway, I'm at work a couple weeks later. Get call from doc. I'm told I have an STD. It is HPV-16. She gives me all the info. I research more online. I had one partner one time at age 16 with a condom prior to my age. Otherwise, I've only been with him in the last 20 plus years. H was a virgin when we started dating in high school. I asked the doctor, is there any chance, with our physical history, that I could have gotten this STD from anything other than my husband cheating on me? She said it was possible but very unlikely. I hung up, left work early, told H he didn't show much reaction, said he was sorry, seemed kind of stunned, went to research HPV online himself. I told him I would be calling OMH. Even though HPV rarely affects men, he's a carrier. Maybe he's going to leave O or have a revenge affair. He should know, right? At this point, OMH doesn't even know it was a PA. H didn't discourage me, but I realized later he didn't think I was actually going to do it. Next morning, I waited till I knew she would be at work. I text OMH and say, I need to talk to you, when would be good? He replies now. I say, are you sure? It's not good news. He says yes. I call from a private room at work. Keep in mind, at this point he still thinks no P. I tell him that there was a physical thing. H admitted. And the few details I knew about where and when. About the no protection. And about the HPV-16. He says he doesn't know what to think. He's just sure there was no P. He wonders aloud why my H would admit to P if no P. I just let him ramble. He then tells me there are things O told him about my H that he should tell me. I say, bring it. He then rattles off 5 stories of truly awful things that my H has supposedly done. Multiple affairs, ENPA, and other nasty things. O told him he would never have slept with my H because my H was so promiscuous. Of course, here I am floored yet again, although I'm getting a little more jaded to this process than I was DD1. Only a hair less crazy, but hey, improvement is improvement. We hang up. Again I extend my offer to share evidence, discuss, and commiserate. He never contacted me again, ever, to this day. About 5 minutes later, O texts me, you are ducking B up to now. I'd been the only one hurling insults. She really had not called me names, just politely continued to lie to me and gaslight me. She starts threatening me. She tells me that H is only lying about Pia to make me leave. That she would never have slept with my H, it was only picture and talking. She said I'd ruined her life. She wanted to know about the HPV results and expressed no surprise or dismay in learning that she either had it or had been exposed to it or anything. I think she knew she had it. She demanded that I tell her H that I and my H were lying. She said that she had all sorts of evidence about my H's true activities and that she would not share it unless I fixed things with her H. I saved all her texts. I told H later that night. He was truly surprised I'd followed through with my plan, and not in a good way. He said that if OMH shot his family that night or came and shot our family, that it would be on me. I should have minded my own business. Wow. He did later apologize, but that he even thought to blame me for a moment. Wow. Of course, O and OWH throwing new accusations into the mix without a shred of evidence has been the cruelest thing they ever could have done. I have chased my tail and chewed off my foot looking for anything on the new accusations. I can't find anything but evidence about the 1O. Plenty of evidence about her. Emails where all of the 2 families were copied that in hindsight were full of innuendos on her part. FB posts by O that had veiled flirtations or hints at the truth. She had a lot of fun sticking that knife in my back over and over. So, with the exception of 2 small nuggets of truth in the new accusations, both admitted by my H and verified by other parties, and the other items linger out there in the fog to taunt me with the not knowing and not being sure. But it seems that if there are tons of evidence of O and no evidence of anyone else, that there was just O and she was trying to deflect by telling her H and me otherwise. But it still haunts me. Throughout all of this, I did gather bits and pieces of what about our marriage was lacking for my H. It was all pretty mundane stuff. I've read the love languages and am working through his needs, her needs now. While I don't want to discount his needs, I do want to say that I have read some marital help stuff over the years and have tried really hard to fulfill all needs. I'm not perfect, but he was not lacking or bereft in any of his needs. I think about it like a bunch of gas tanks, love banks, whatever. For each need he has, I would say most of them were topped off and a few at 75%. Nothing like what would necessitate an affair. He said I didn't compliment him enough, but I think he just didn't hear me because he was already hearing her voice over mine. He also said I was too mothering. This one bothered me the most, as it was one of the things he loved about me when we first met. I remember him saying that the day I refilled the empty ice cube tray without being asked the first time I came to eat dinner with his family was the day he knew he wanted to marry me. He has always shown appreciation for me taking care of the family and kind of being the hub to all of our spokes. So, this hurt to hear my gift of love become my downfall. He said he wanted me to be more fun. This I know refers back to me encouraging more control with the drinking. He said we didn't have bond enough. I have never ever denied bonding, although on occasion I've been unenthusiastic and a bit resistant when he has presented himself sloppy drunk. I gave him as much attention he wanted. I would have liked to have more, actually, so it really pissed me off when he threw lack of bonding in my face as a reason for his affair. He actually said, "Remember that year when child number 1 slept in our bed?" I don't think we had slept together during that whole year. Yeah, I remember. It sucked for me too. He would come to bed after I was asleep, or when the baby would be up, or whatever. I'm sure it didn't help that I probably looked like crap, smelled like baby vomit, and was barely functioning as I held down my career and 3 kids while breastfeeding a child who refused anything but the breast. This was one of our rough periods, but it was 5 years ago. Since then, things got back on track. Bonding was good and regular, at least weekly. So really, this is what caused you to heaven and now. He likes our bonding life now a lot, and I have stepped up my game as far as the things I do. He was resistant to me, so I followed his lead. But now, I take charge more often and he also will take charge sometimes, and it's fun that way. So yes, even though our bonding life wasn't bad or lacking in frequency, it has gotten way more fun and satisfying. Also, my low-maintenance appearance was an issue, although he never said it, based on how he has responded to me slimming down, spending more time on how I look. I know this played a part. Not that O is super hot, she is super not. She has some attractiveness, but I would honestly still say less attractive than me. She has a fake chest, but mine are larger and real. She has a giant back, mine is normal. She has cellulite-filled, varicose-veined legs. I have gorgeous legs. She has no taste in dress, makeup, hair. I do, but sometimes choose to be slouchier in the interest of time or money. Not anymore. But honestly, she was more tomboy than me and often appeared in public looking like a homeless person. She is a glorified cleaning lady. I manage over 1,000 people. She doesn't cook, doesn't clean, makes very little money, and is not attentive to her children, yet other than work she has no life. Hobbies, family? Nothing. She's not outgoing nor social. She's more high maintenance than me with the hair and nail appointments and wanting $400 purses and such. But then she still dresses like a total slob, so it doesn't seem like money well spent. She has 2 children, 1 kid from a pregnancy at 16 that her H has raised as his own, and 1 that she has with her H. They are both some of the most socially awkward kids I have ever met. She doesn't make an attempt to ensure their teeth are brushed, haircut and combed. Clothes are raggedy and ill-fitting. Her H is nice, a little boring, takes up the slack on cooking and cleaning that his W doesn't do, or is fine with fast food and eating out every night. His family has oil money and they see a lot of it. O smokes full-time, but he doesn't know it. How does one do that? She is one to say, "Yeah, let's buy this, but don't tell H how much it was, or don't tell H how many drinks I've had tonight." I'm just not that way with my H, and always told her that I would never lie to her H, and she was on her own with that. I let her know I disapproved. Irony, oh irony. So now here we are. NC has held as far as I can tell. He says, "I can't even picture what she looks like, and I don't know what I was thinking." He told me once that he kept waiting for her as the woman to put the brakes on things, but she kept leading him on the next step. He described the nasty excitement of doing this right under the OWH's nose. The competition factor of it. He says all he's ever truly wanted is me. He just forgot for a little while. The only way I've found to live with this is to spread the blame. And I'm not sure that's right, but it's what is working for me, sort of right now. I blame my O more than the normal O. She was intricately involved in our lives. She had access to me and my H and the will and ability to manipulate us all. She hugged and kissed my kids and told me that she loved them as if they were her own. I blame the supplements my H was on that drove his libido and testosterone levels up. While legal, I don't think they are safe, and I think this, along with his screaming conscience, also contributed to the physical violence. His awful parents in childhood did a lot of damage that lies under the surface. I haven't done much to the O. There is so much I could do, but not worth the repercussions. I'm no longer the bigger person who wants to protect OWH or O's kids. I actually don't care about them at all. I'm developing quite a little mean streak. I drove to her house one night with a big landscaping rock on the passenger seat next to me with the plan to throw it through her car window. But I did not. I've seriously considered posting one of her photos on Cheaterville, but have settled for searching her name every so often so that she has a really high search count. It feels late to do any exposing or much of the advice that is so good here. I wish I'd found this information much earlier. Not hurting the O enough is a thorn in my side. Makes me feel like a wimp. The fact that her MIL and her H still believe this was only an EA. It eats at me, but I figure they are stupid and they will find out the truth, and worse someday. I'm afraid I've developed myself a nifty little drinking problem, which I've never in my life had. as I've drank myself into quite a few blackout nights. I've done some shameful things in anger. I keep things somewhat together and tamped down tight, until a little alcohol loosens me up. I feel very alone. Since he did most of the post-affair whining, nearly everyone I was previously close to is tainted. I can't talk to any of them. I never disclose to his family as none of them are really involved in our lives with any consistency. My family only knows something bad happened with these friends, and I'm sure have put some sort of 2 and 2 together. I have one friend who has been a BS, and she has given me such great advice and truly been there for me. I try not to dump on her too often, as she is starting a new life with a great new guy after finally dumping her WS after his second affair. I'm still very social and active, as one of H's complaints about me was that I wasn't being fun enough. So I'm very conscious of that. But I'm just always lonely in a crowd of people. H doesn't believe in counseling. His mom is an addict and became that way through counseling and various therapies. She has been awful to him his whole life. So, he is not in the least bit interested in IC or MC, and honestly, I'm really not either. Oh, the triggers, they are just awful. The O and OWH live just around the corner from us. Until recently, I've been driving out of my way in order to avoid the road that goes past their neighborhood. But lately I've been trying to reclaim certain things that are triggers. I've learned here about flooding and have been trying that, of course, so I've passed her on the road twice now. But this is my town, and I'll be darned if I continue to hate it in my house and my community as much as I do right now. I've asked my H to just let's move the heck away from here and never look back, but he says no, that's not what I really want deep down. He says it's a knee-jerk reaction. I say, no, let's just burn the house down and go. And I think I mean it. I still come across pictures that have one or more of their family members in it. Picture tagged on FB that have me stupidly smiling with both O and my H there, knowing what they are doing behind my back. I have a lot of rage, and it tends to come out at awkward times. I'm doing my best to cut back on drinking right now. I could easily cut it completely, but I'm not ready to lose this outlet when the pain or rage or sadness gets unbearable. I guess I've rambled my way to some sort of end here. I will edit this before posting as it's super long and winding. If you stick through reading my story, I welcome your thoughts about it. No one on this earth knows my whole story. Probably not even me. Note that I've since tested clear of the virus and need to do so twice more over the next year to be deemed officially clear. Also, those infections cleared up completely about 2 months after NC and have never reappeared, so I conclude they were caused by my H having slept with O. My 1-year anniversary of DD1 is Friday, June 8th. That was the day I saw that number in my cell phone bill, followed by 56 minutes of talk time, and I knew. For now, I take a line from the fish cartoon and just keep swimming. 1 year later, when I last posted, I was seriously contemplating D. I have not filed, and the past year has had some extremely rough spots and some good spots. Our family has hobbled along. Would you believe we are still involved in the charitable organization, and it has given us more than our fair share of stress? The O and OWH has cropped up a handful of times, to our detriment, to sling mud and throw stones from their glass house. Most has been directed at my H, so while some of that mud gets on me and the kids, I've mostly looked at it as deserved on my H part. Until a few weeks ago, OWH slung some major mud, approaching a group of our friends and yelling in public, accusing my H of a criminal record. You may remember from my previous thread that my son had gotten in trouble, while H and DS go by the same name. So, whatever searching they'd done had pulled up DS record and they assumed it was H. That really set me off. I attempted to speak to OWH directly, called and texted him to let him know he was treading on the sacred ground of my children. Something we'd both avoided in dealing with this. He refused to talk to me. I tried for a solid day to deal with it amicably, but then finally realized what a total wuss the OWH really is and got really angry. He still doesn't believe it was a PA. I drank 2 bottles of wine and started texting out O's pictures. Boy, did that get his attention. He finally called H and was in the process of screaming at him when I took the phone. H didn't even know I'd sent out pictures. OWH called me the worst female names possible. And O actually did move. Same area and town, but a neighborhood further away, closer to different grocery stores, different high school eventually. The nephew moved too, but I still have a cousin in my son's school. But these moves have helped a ton. It is much less likely that we will have run-ins. I only saw O once last year, when our son's middle schools played each other. The cop who was sort of helping to stir things up ended up going through his own marital issues and hasn't messed with us again. His kids go to my son's school and they are all friends, but the adults just avoid each other. I think sending the picture did set the tone that I wasn't going to put up with any more mess and that there would be ugly consequences. Maybe they needed to realize that I am a little bit crazy. My comment: stay safe, and I am preparing the second story for tonight. Stay tuned.